It's Christmas time again. Despite the crisis, British people are spending nearly €84 billion on seasonal shopping, up 1% from last year. But on the other side of the shop windows, it's another story. Shop floor workers are among the lowest paid, even here in London's glittering Oxford Street.
I earn £6.50 an hour. I have to live with my uncles, and it doesn't really go that far at all. For 4 weeks, £600 doesn't, get you 4 weeks.
So this job isn't enough, so I'm looking for a second job now. It's really hard. I'm going to have to sleep about 2 hours a day, but you do what you have to do.
You have to be really careful not to spend too much and just because you've got to budget everything. You can't, can I go out tonight? Can I not go out with my friends? You've got to be really careful with the money. So you've got enough to travel, enough for lunch, enough to even get into work, It's crazy. So it would help if you had that little bit much money.
Please spare change, please, guys. Help the orphans. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
In the UK, workers cannot be paid less than £6.08 an hour. This is the national minimum wage. But this figure's not always respected. The minimum wage was first introduced as a way to control the proliferation of sweatshops in the manufacturing industry. First in New Zealand and Australia, then adopted in London, but only for certain sectors. During the Great Depression, Roosevelt's America followed suit. Most countries today have some sort of minimum wage. The value of it varies greatly, with a big gap between developed and developing countries, where the abundance of unskilled workers pushes the level down. A country with no lack of cheap labour is South Africa. To protect the most vulnerable workers, the state sets the minimum level of pay, for instance, for farm workers. Although it varies according to different areas and farm sizes, it's around 70 euro cents an hour.
This money is too much more, but because we are not too much educated, as you can see, so this is the only job that we have. So we try to divide that money according to our needs so that we can be able to survive.
It's important to have a minimum wage because the government should know the cost of living. We'd like to earn more than we earn now, but we're afraid to ask. If we ask for more money, they'll just push us aside and get some other people in our place.
The
benefit for us as a grower, when it comes to harvesting our crop, we need to have everybody in work every day at those critical times. And because we pay a higher wage and we pay incentive bonuses to the people who work harder, we have a workforce that is committed to getting the crop off.
There's no one-size-fits-all in South Africa. There are as many as 43 minimum wages, depending on the job sector and geographical area. How has this safety net performed in the post-apartheid years, in a country with perhaps the highest unemployment in the world?
In most cases, what minimum wages have done for most of the affected workers has been, understandably, to increase wages. So you've seen an increase in average wage levels for domestic workers, for farm workers, for taxi drivers and so on. At the same time, however, there is evidence in some sectors, particularly in agriculture, that the minimum wage has seen a reduction in employment. So I think there are a variety of shifts, but on average, you'd be hard-pressed to argue that a minimum wage will not reduce employment. The challenge, I think, though, is for policymakers to think about the trade-off. That minimum wages, on the one hand, do protect the poor. They've been shown almost without exception to reduce household poverty levels.
Apartheid may be a thing of the past, but some smart Cape Town suburbs are predominantly white, and each pretty house has at least one domestic worker, almost always black. How to make sure this is a job and not a form of slavery? The law steps in to draw the line, starting from establishing decent pay. Mina's one of the lucky ones who's paid more than the minimum wage.
The law is there, but the law is not implemented. Because people, they see it in the newspaper, you must give your worker that and that, but they don't care about that. They don't care about the workers. It's just like you must take what I give you. And the other thing is some of the workers are very weak. They're scared. Maybe I will lose my room where I'm staying, and then I will end up in the streets.
Everybody I know is in the same sort of financial category as I am, living in Constantia, which is an upmarket area, and not one of their domestics are in Mina's position. None of them earn what Mina does. None of them get the extras that Mina does. Mina is allowed so many leniencies constantly. The minimum wage, most people don't take any notice of it, but they keep as close as they can to paying as little as they can.
Mina's school-aged children have to live in this shanty town on their own. It's not just about the pay, it's about recognition, it's about human rights.
Apartheid was, I think, the most best thing or the best present that we can get as the domestic workers. In the apartheid years, when as I grew up, there was never a space for domestic workers in this country. We also been labelled, we also been given names, and when it comes to wages, even the previous government was saying that domestic workers don't need a wage act. They can go for training is to cook better, and we feel that that is a discrimination against us. We feel that we are part and parcel of this country, and we also contribute to the economy of this country.
In times of crisis, many countries are revamping their lowest wage floor to protect the poor. Back in the United Kingdom, where the national minimum wage has been in place for 11 years, the results are positive.
Certainly it's helped to reduce inequality. I think inequality has been rising, but it would have risen even more without the minimum wage. The minimum wage can't solve the ills of the world. What it can do is to set a floor and aim to stop exploitation of people, but it can't solve the issues of the whole employment structure of the economy. That's not something you could ask it to do, and if you ask it to do that, it'll fall over.
The man behind the adoption of this policy is the Labour Party's Sir Ian McCartney. He says this was the best achievement of his career. We met him in Wigan, the town in northwest England made famous by George Orwell, where he lives.
We had the longest sitting in parliamentary history. I never left the chamber. I had a beard growing. My armpits were rotten. But I was determined that that bill was going to be through. I had enough of the Conservatives. 100 years of holding it up, they weren't going to hold up another 100 days. When we finally got the bill through, and it was total elation. The atmosphere, it was like a football match. I think you'd win the World Cup. It was just tremendous. And people were saying, this is why we got into politics. This is why we wanted to change the world. We're changing things. And whether you're in a recession or whether you're in the good times, no worker should be exploited for their labour.